Yes, welcome back. Well, today we have for a very special guest, Mr. Ole Dammegard, who has been with us before and is a prize-winning, uh, multi-talented artist, musician, author, journalist, and investigator. He's recently completed a major study of the assassination of Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme, coup d'etat in slow motion. And he maintains a website at lightonconspiracies.com and is developing a documentary in these areas, and has a number of projects underway that he'll be speaking to us on. Today, we're doing part two of the interview that we started, and this was on the issue of political assassinations and the special units that were formed within the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. We focused the last time, because it was the 50th anniversary of the JFK assassination, on the assassinations of politicians such as John F. Kennedy and RFK and others, and how these had been carried out by the CIA Operation 40. Today we'll be focusing on the assassination by the CIA and other entities of leading musicians. Well, welcome, Ole. It's a great privilege and a great pleasure to have you here again.
The pleasure is all mine, Alfred.
It's very disturbing for you, for me, for all of us, to learn about the assassination of musicians, because they give us so much internal vision and pleasure. We all are taken to new heights. We all get insights and sort of go into reveries around their music, and we all have these life peak experiences around these. Before we launch into the specific musicians whose assassinations you have researched, why do you think these forces are assassinating musicians?
I think it's exactly like you say. These people are people that are lifting our spirit, are showing us the way, are giving us the courage to stand up, are leading the way towards peace and understanding and harmony between people. And this is what this elite group is trying to avoid at any cost. Their agenda is death and destruction, wars, drugs, destabilization of our society, these horrific things that we try to avoid. But these beautiful souls that become big artists and so on, they are more or less always some of the first that are taken out. If you look historically at like when there's a revolution, or if there's a political takeover, a coup d'etat, a militant coup d'etat, one of the first groups of people they aim at are writers, authors, poets, musicians, these type of people that can build up the strength for normal people to gain back their courage to be able to fight this group. So I think everyone who stands up and where people really listen to them and they affect millions of people, they become a target. So it's not only, like I say, it's authors, poets, musicians, also actors, and people on the theater stage and so on. These people become targets as well.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about this as a fellow artist and musician? Because you have written scores for motion pictures. You have written uh, original music.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful. I think it's, I mean, this is so against everything I stand for. And because I stand for all these beautiful, ethic, moral, beautiful things in life, and this group stands for the absolute opposites. And that is why somebody like myself is putting myself in danger talking about these things, because this targets me as well as anyone else that does the same. It is a very unpleasant situation.
Let's talk about. We'll be talking about a number of musicians that have been assassinated. Let's start with one who has really people have uh, uh, really focused on him from time to time because of the originality and force that he brought in the area of peace, and that's John Lennon. And I know that he touched. I mean, he touched all of us. My particular experience was that at the time that he lived in New York with Yoko, I was lived in New York, and I was a modern dancer with the Elaine Summers and Marilyn Wood group. I did that as sort of a avocation, and we had a modern dance in the NYU gym. It was held in the NYU gym, and it was, this modern thing. So the audience sat on the gym floor, and we danced among the audience. So there I was and I was dancing, and all of a sudden the couple right in front of me was John and Yoko.
Wow.
And I danced around them. It was really, they really dug it.
I'm sorry I missed that one.
So that was very interesting. But I'm just, could you walk us through? I mean, it's you know how you approach this, the whole unfolding of John Lennon's death, John Lennon's assassination, which was a tragic moment for everyone, and the forces that you have discovered have been behind it.
If it's okay, I would like to go back in history for a while, because to just describe the outlines of this group, that I've been able to connect to so many of these different hits, because according to my research, it's almost 30 years that I've been really doing this on a deep felt level. What I tracked down is that I found it's the same global elite behind so many of these major political assassinations, and also terror attacks. We're talking like assassinations like of JFK, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Marilyn Monroe, Olof Palme, the Swedish Olof Palme, the Swedish Prime Minister, Robert Smith, South Africa. You got Salvador Allende in Chile. You got Pablo Neruda, the Nobel Prize winning poet from the same country, and so on. And this, I've been able to track down the people who actually committed these assassinations to a very small little group that was formed in the early or late 1950s and early 1960s. It was a group that went under the name Operation 40 or Group 40, and it was organized by the order of President Dwight Eisenhower, who gave his Vice President Richard Nixon the task to form a group of specially trained assassins, mostly exiled Cubans and people from the CIA, to have as a tool to take out international leaders or whoever was a problem for them. At that specific time, the main focus was on Richard Nixon. Fidel Castro. This was the guy they wanted to take out. And the paymaster, or the guy who had the finances, took care of the finances and funneled them through from oil tycoons in Texas, from the mob, from the military-industrial complex, was a young man at that time by the name of George Herbert Walker Bush. That is, if you look at the people who are involved in this group, you will find key people in so many of these assassinations. And also it goes into the Iran-Contras, it goes into straight into 9/11 and so on. It's just dead on the same people that have been active for so many years. And now quite a few of them are dead because they live violently and they die violently. Many of them have done that, but still to this day, some of them are very active, even though they're in their 70s and their 80s. So if not by doing assassinations themselves, then by training others and so on. So in this group, there was, let's go forward in time now to the year of 1980. It was in December 1980 that John Lennon, he was just about to do his comeback after quite a few years of being a home dad with his kids and so on, with his kid. And they had he had to, together with Yoko Ono, they had recorded this album, and they were planning a big peace tour where they were going around once again spreading peace, the message of peace to millions of people. And for some reason, that was the time when it was decided that he was supposed to be taken out. So if we go to the murder site that evening, the limo arrives to the Dakota building in New York City, and there has been, they say the official story says that the so-called assassin by the name of Mark Chapman had been standing outside the building more or less all day long, waiting for him to return. And he was standing to the right when the limo came. So out of the limo stepped Yoko Ono first, and then John followed like 5-6 meters after him. Yoko Ono almost entered the building, and John Lennon was halfway in there's sort of like a big entrance, and he was halfway in there when these shots were fired. John Lennon goes down, starts crawling into the building, and anyway, they call the police and so on, and people come, and the doorman, who is there as well, he comes, this is the official story, he runs forward and grabs the gun from Chapman and says, "My God, you just shot Lennon." And from then on, Mark Chapman was just standing more or less like a zombie. They say he was reading a book, the same book as other assassins have been reading after doing these type of things, just waiting to be picked up. But if you look at the crime scene, where did the shots come from? The official autopsy protocol on these shows that all the shots were fired straight from the left, and very connected. I mean, it was almost like they were so closely together, some of them, that it was hard to tell if it was more than one shot. And Chapman was standing to the right, so who was standing to the left? There was this doorman, and this doorman, his name was Jose Perdomo, and for 10 years he was the highest ranking officer in the Operation 40, this group of assassins, this elite group of assassins. So I ask you, how big are the chances that you have a former, so-called former, elite assassin at that very specific spot where the shots were fired from, and that he was not involved? I think it's very clear that he was deeply involved in this. And it's also been pointed out, I don't know this for sure, but that the architect of this assassination was Ted the Blonde Ghost Shackley, very, very, very high up in the CIA. He was also part of Operation 40, and he was also part of an endless number of assassinations and other acts globally. And these people work together. They've been working for years and years.
Could you say Ted's name again?
Ted Shackley.
Shackley. right,
Shackly.
right.
You will find him. He was called the Blonde Ghost. I mean, nobody really saw him ever, but he had his fingers involved in so many of these assassinations. It's incredible. In Europe as well. I mean, assassinations done around the Palma assassination with illegal arms deals in Germany, for instance, where there was a man called Uwe Barzel, a politician that was he committed suicide by drowning himself in a bathtub, fully dressed. One of these or suicides, and he was said to be part of that assassination as well. He was also pointed out as being part of the assassination of Gerald Bull, who was the inventor of the supergun. I don't know if you're aware of that. He was, I think, Canadian scientist who had invented this fire missiles to outer space almost, and he was in the process of developing this and was, as far as I know, turned down by the CIA, and then he turned towards Saddam Hussein, offering him to buy this gun, and then he was murdered as well, and all his papers, everything got disappeared after that.
Right. Now, going back to the scene of the crime there. So, Jose Perdomo,
Yeah.
he was part of Operation 40.
Yeah.
Was he one of the Cuban exiles, or was he?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. He was formerly he was a high-ranking police officer under the Batista regime before Fidel Castro took over, and then he escaped from Cuba and he was picked up. Many of these were exile Cubans. More or less all of them were exile Cubans in this group. You got people like Luis Posada Carillas. He's in so many of these. I mean, we're talking in the hundreds of terror acts, blowing up passenger planes, blowing up cars, shooting people, trying to shoot at the United Nations building with a bazooka. This type of people, blowing up hundreds of different places, together with other key people in this group. There was one of them, the guy that supplies most of the bombs. His name was Orlando Bosch. He was also in Dealey Plaza when JFK was killed. Not that he was directly active there, but he was later the guy who supplied the bomb when they blew up Orlando Lettier in one Embassy Row. I don't know if you remember that. He was
I do.
a Chilean politician.
Yeah.
It was part of Operation Condor. After they overthrew Salvador Allende, they started hunting down his supporters on a global scale. And he was one of the guys they blew up. And one of the other guys that was part of that hit was a man by James Files, who also helped deliver the explosives. And James Files is the man that claims to be, and I truly believe him, to be the shooter on the grassy knoll by the tree behind the picket fence. That was the one that fired the final headshot at JFK. So they were also, these people that I just mentioned were also part of blowing up a Cuban airliner where they killed 73 people. It just goes, in my book Coup d'etat in slow motion, I've taken Orlando Bosch just as an example, and it's page up, page down, page up, page down of different terror acts that he was involved in. I mean, we're talking on a weekly basis, they were blowing up things right, left and center. And then finally they got him and put him in jail, and then he was pardoned by, guess who? George Herbert Walker Bush.
Right. In fact, going back here just a second. So it would appear then that there was a great deal of logic to, I mean, ghastly logic, grotesque logic, because John Lennon and Yoko had their bed in for peace, I believe in Toronto, where they spent a week or so in bed, and they invited all the press in, and they were just showing that, you could stay in bed and make love, not war.
Mm.
And that garnered a lot of headlines, and they bought a billboard in Times Square, and it could say, "War is over if you want it." You know,
Give peace a chance.
yeah,
Give
yeah,
peace a chance.
and so they have a powerful vision that can catch on, and of course the CIA are the henchmen of the Illuminati war industry. And
Mm.
so here you have their plans are now to come out with a new album, and as you mentioned, to go on a peace tour. So it appears that they maneuvered in Jose Perdomo and got him a job as the doorman. And then could you talk about uh, it seems that Chapman was the typical MK Ultra patsy. Is that what you have found, or?
I would say that 100%. It's very typical. It's one thing if you just look into one case, but if you look into case after case after case after case, you will start seeing very, very specifically when there is a patsy involved that has been subdued to MK Ultra treatment. One of the major or main things that you will discover is that these people are not violent people. Sometimes they're weak mentally or demented in some way. They can very easily be hypnotized. And it seems like some of the things they've gone through to become these patsies is that they've been traumatized, going through awful things where they managed to split up their personality in more than one, so that one part of the brain or the one personality has absolutely no idea what the other one is doing, and then they can trigger one personality and shut down the other one, so that for instance, if Chapman, for instance, they will prepare him with the story that he was actually the shooter, and then they can trigger in and out, so that he doesn't actually remember the thing itself. This is one of the things that goes again when you have these MKL, that they don't remember anything with emotion. It's just like a loop, a tape, like a message that just goes round and round. They normally use more or less exactly the same words again and again when they describe it. They don't remember anything before, and they hardly remember anything after. And also, they're very rarely, I think, used to do the shooting, the killing themselves, because they cannot be trusted as being skilled assassins in that way. But they're used to take the fall. They're used to become patsies and take the blame for it. And also, once the shooting or the killing is done, they will just stand there like totally pacified, like zombies waiting to be picked up. And often they're triggered by keywords. And I believe that the word that Perdomo said to Chapman, "You just shot John Lennon," that was the keyword that triggered him into going passive. And then he was just standing there, head down, waiting to be picked up.
Is there anything in Chapman's background that connects him to anything significant here? I know that later, during the attempted Ronald Reagan assassination, the patsy there supposedly had dinner earlier. Yeah, go ahead.
With Neil Bush, George Bush's son.
Yeah.
The Bush family, I mean, this family is super criminal. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling once you start studying what they're involved in, because they have dipped their hands in blood in so many different areas, and they're connected so deeply in all of these things. And Hinckley, the one you're talking about now, who even looks like Mark Chapman, they're very closely, they could almost be brothers. Same story, same book they were reading, and Hinckley were supposed to have had dinner with George Bush's son Neil, like you said the evening before. There are also connection with Mark Chapman and the Bush family, just as there were Bin Laden's family were closely connected to the Bush family. Also, Hinckley's family were high up in the oil business, as far as I know, and with deep business connections with the Bush family as well.
So the Bush family is sacrificing the children of their associates as patsies.
I don't know why they do it. I don't understand why they use people that can be traced back to them, but they've done it. And
maybe they can be safely programmed, and their parents won't object because they're part of the criminal conspiracy. I mean, it's known that multi-generational satanic families program their children and don't have the same parental connections. Normal parental connections.
I tell you, when you study this group, it's a bizarre bunch of people, I must say.
Psychopaths.
I don't want to point fingers, but I mean, when you look into so-called evil, and it goes as far as you can go, you with these people, it's incredible. I have absolutely I don't understand the mentality. I can just see the actions and stand like a question mark, just like, what the hell are you doing? But
it was so it was George. So the person essentially who ran and funded Operation 40 from behind the scenes from the beginning was a psychopath, George H.W. Bush.
Yeah. But you have to go back in the Bush family, because his father, Prescott Bush, was the money man for one of the biggest guys who also funded the Hitler war machine.
Right.
It was also Prescott Bush that got Dwight Eisenhower into position to become president. He was also very much involved in pushing Nixon forward. And then his son, so these key people are very connected before. It's not by coincidence.
Yeah.
George.
Yeah, go ahead.
Also, George Bush Sr. is now, it's almost 100% proven that he was in the Daltex building when the shots were fired in the Dealey Plaza assassination of JFK. And Richard Nixon was in Dallas as well. And all of these people are connected. It was a coup d'etat where the people that took out JFK in a bloody execution took over and has stayed in power ever since. As far as I know, the only thing that has changed is the front face, the front figure. It's the same war machine that has just been like a tank, has been moving forward mercilessly ever since. And they're doing it to this very day. That is why I find it so important to expose these things, because it's not just historical events way down the road, that what does it matter in 1963? Come on, get a life, study something else. But it's affecting our life to this very day.
Let me ask you this question, and then we'll go on to some of the other musicians, and this might seem off topic, but in a way it's not, because of the Prescott Bush connection. When I was in Argentina, near Cordova, they showed me. They said, Adolf Hitler stayed in this hotel after the war. Okay. So there's stories of Adolf Hitler going to Argentina. There's stories of Adolf Hitler going to the Nazi base in Antarctica. But there's stories of Adolf Hitler being in the United States. Have you researched that area? I'm just asking.
I know that he was in Argentina and that he died there, as far as I know. I know the villa he stayed in. I know all of these things, but the States, I don't know. But in the States, I know through Operation Paperclip after the Second World War, when everybody thought that, thank God, now the Nazi war machine is dead and over. No, 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 no. You imported thousands and thousands and thousands of them and used them to build up the OSS that later turned name into the CIA.
Yeah.
Also, they were part of building up the NASA and the banking system. All of this were super Nazis.
Yeah.
That just changed identities, you know. And so it's not, and it's when you look at the elite that has been funding these people, it's the same mentality. It's what they're trying to accomplish in the States today and with the rest of the world. In my opinion, is the Fourth Reich. It's they didn't make it all the way with Hitler, and now they're trying again. They're using exactly the same template, exactly, and we're buying it. For me, it's like unreal.
Yeah.
But
to set it up for the next to work the 1,000-year Reich through the U.S.
Yeah. And the U.S. is the one of the major problems they have, because the population is armed. It's the only country more or less who's got an armed population. So this is why all of these mass shootings are taking place, or so-called mass shootings are taking place in the States, where they're trying to make it out that the weapons is the problem. So put down your weapons and the problem will disappear. No. The thing is that they're staging these events. They're false flag operations. I don't know one real mass shootings. Every single one I looked into has been staged and is there to convince the population to put down the weapons. Which I'm not a pro-gun person at all, but I would deeply advise the population not to give over their weapons, because then they will just take over.
Right.
I'm not saying use the weapon, because then they will they will use that as a reason to put in even more militant power. But every single dictator, if you go back, you look at Stalin, you look at Mao and these people, where they've said, put down your weapons. And what have they done? As soon as people have done that, they've blown their brains out. You know, study history. It's a very good recipe for understanding what is going on. You will see the same templates being used, the same methods being used on a modern day scale. And now in the company of high-tech equipment, which makes it a lot trickier, because then much fewer people can control so many more if we allow them.
Exactly. Okay, well, let me take a deep breath, because it coming from John Lennon, that's a very and let's go to the next giant of music that we all remember, Bob Marley.
Yeah, once again, in my opinion, a beautiful person. I just want to say regarding John Lennon, there's evidence showing that there might have been a second shooter that was also involved in this group, that I will maybe name on another occasion.
Okay.
Anyway, but we go back to Bob Marley.
Okay. Is it that you're still researching that, or you don't want to name? Okay, good.
I promise not to reveal it yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so with Bob Marley, we're back to the same type of person. Bob Marley, people who don't know about him might think that he was just a dope-smoking, dreadlock no-brainer. But
Ganja Raj.
Ganja Raj. Nothing could be further from the truth, because this was a man, a very intelligent man. He was a half-breed, or his father was white and his mother was black. And he grew up as an outcast, which made him very aware of injustice and these things. And he grew up and very focused on, with his music, to make a change in the world. It's like he said one time, he said, I'm a very simple man with a very simple wish. I just want to unite mankind. And with his music, he was really standing up against these powers, because he became more and more aware of what was going on, the things that we're talking about now. And through his music, he was naming them almost, stand up for your rights, war,
Right.
war, all of these things. If you look into the lyrics, he's pointing straight at these people. And he was becoming, he and the Wailers were becoming like a symbol, a peace symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And not only on Jamaica, it started on Jamaica, but then his popularity just spread. And then it started moving towards Africa. And that was when I think they really thought that we need to take this guy out, because he was getting in, he was becoming a major peace symbol, or a stand up for your rights for the black population in Africa as well, in Zimbabwe and these countries. Zimbabwe, that used to be Rhodesia, so it was a very violent anti-apartheid or apartheid system that had just been taken over. But if we go back in 1975, it was around 1975 and so on, the CIA was trying to destabilize Jamaica. I mean, they'd been going from country to country to country to country and just knocked them out one by one. And in those years, Jamaica was one of the targets. And Henry Kissinger, who is one of the forefront people when it comes to warmongering, he goes there as a so-called peacemaker to go there and he goes to conflict areas and negotiate peace. That's what he goes there for. But that is absolutely not true. He and Lord Carrington have been the two people that has really stirred it up, getting the fights going, getting the wars going, and so on. So he's been, I mean, when we talk about war criminals, Henry Kissinger is right up there in the top 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't know, but I mean, awful actions he's been doing, this man. Anyway, in the mid-70s, they were targeting Jamaica, and he went, then once again, Henry Kissinger came down there and he spoke to the Prime Minister, don't worry, we have absolutely no plans of interfering. And while he was doing that with the President or Prime Minister, at the same time, more or less, they were starting a whole campaign of sabotage, of assassinations, of pumping in weapons on this small little island that used to be really peaceful. And just pumping up, with arsons and all of these things, totally disrupting Michael Manley's democratic rule of this little island. And like I say, they pumped in lots and lots of weapons, automatic weapons and all of these things. And you had CIA thugs that came in. And one of the people that came to that island was no other than oh God, I just forgot his name. Luis Posada Carillas. I'm sorry, there's so many names. Yeah, sometimes it's like my mind gets tired.
Right.
Okay, Luis Posada Carillas. That was one of the major people in Operation 40. He was also present in Dealey Plaza. Not that he was taking active part of the killing there, as far as I know, but he was there in Dealey Plaza. What they did that day was they just put of these assassins from all over. I mean, there's so many of them in Dealey Plaza that day, I think to just confuse everything, so that if someone like myself would start looking into it, it would just point all over the place. Oh. And anyway, so Luis Posada Carillas, he's also, like, they call him Mr. Terror and the King of Terror, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds of operations. And he came to Jamaica, and in, I think it was 1976, they were the Bob Marley and the Wailers were almost tricked into joining a concert, a peace concert, to unite the people on on Jamaica, and what they were tricked in a way that they were not aware that they were just gonna what do you call it, declare elections just after the concert. So suddenly Bob Marley became one of the everybody listened to him. So if he said, I'm standing up on this candidate's side, they would just vote for him, and so on. So Bob Marley was very confused and angry that he ended up in this situation. But anyway, there were martial law on the island at that point, and it just came to a point where Bob said, I'm going to go there and just join whatever I can do to join the population, to unite them and so on. So that was once again unity and harmony, not the part of the elite's agenda. So I think it was just a week before the concert, a hit team was sent in, and they came to Bob Marley's house, and there was 8 shots fired into the kitchen where he was. His wife was hit in the back of the head. His manager was shot as well 4 times, and Bob Marley he escaped by a miracle. Like one bullet just passed, it made a mark on his chest, and then the bullet lodged in his left arm. But even though that happened, Bob Marley still decided to be part of this concert. So the day when the concert came, There were 80,000 people there, 80,000. And in such a turbulent situation, it would have been so easy to take him out. And he was very aware of that. So he went up on stage knowing that he could be shot at any time. He came 5 hours late to the concert, but when he came in a police car, it was just unseen before. The unity, the feeling, the everything. So, and he stood up and sang all these songs. And what he also did was that he took out the 2 leaders of for the upcoming election, and he brought them up on stage. These were, what do you call it, deadly enemies, but by the group force, like when he said, he invited them up in the microphone, please come up, and they just 80,000 looking at them, they couldn't really say no to that. So they came up, and he joined their hands like this, their hands on stage, standing up in a situation where he could have been shot at any time. That takes courage. And that also showed the CIA that this is not a guy to play around with. He means business. Okay, so after that shooting, I'm not sure if it was before or after the concert. Anyway, there was a lot of protection and bodyguards around Bob Marley. But one man managed to get through that ring of bodyguards. And that was a man by the name of Carl Colby. Now, Carl Colby is a documentary filmer, and he approached Bob Marley saying that he wanted to do a documentary about him and so on. But Carl Colby is also the son of Bill Colby, who used to be the head of the CIA. Once again, these so-called coincidences. Okay, so one of the things that he brought with him a pair of boots, because he knew that Bob Marley was really into fitness, and he loved cowboy boots. He loved jeans and these things, and he was given these boots, and he said, "Oh, great!" And so he pulled on one of the boots, and when he did that, there was one witness, a photographer called Lee Ju J or something like that. I can't remember. He's a prize-winning photographer. He was there, and he said when Bob pulled on one of the boots, he just screamed, and what is this? And he pulled off the boot again, and inside the boot there was a little piece of a copper wire that had punctured his big toe. This is the same big toe where Bob Marley later develops cancer. I don't know about you, but I've never heard about anyone having cancer in his big toe, but that is where it started.
Oh.
And yeah, what can you say? Anyway, so it's also important to point out that this Carl Colby was one of the witnesses at the O.J. Simpson trial. He was a neighbor to O.J. Simpson's wife, as far as I remember right. So once again, that is a case I haven't looked into, but there's a lot of question marks. I know that around the whole thing, and him being a witness there. We're talking once again, major events, and then the same people turn up. Then there's a big reason to put a question mark there. I'm not saying he was part, but I'm saying put a question mark and look into it deeper.
Yeah, Bill Colby was the head of the Phoenix program in Vietnam, which was the assassination program.
Yeah, and I mean they took out 20,000 at least, as far as I know. And Bill Colby was also stationed in Stockholm in the early 1950s, where he was building up the Stay Behind movement, the Gladio movement in Sweden and other countries. And one of the people that was helping him there, or he was working with, was the Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme. In his, so with the same people coming again and again. Yeah, and also one of the other key people were Alan Dulles, who was part of the JFK assassination. Then after, he was the chief of the CIA, who was kicked out by JFK, part of the JFK assassination, and then after that, part of the Warren Commission, covering the whole thing over. But he was also deeply involved in the whole thing with building up the Gladio network in Europe, and also a guest in the Palme home, believe it or not. He and his brother, who was also very deeply involved in this. They used to work as lawyers, these two brothers, and they were very deeply involved with the Bush family, with the whole thing around the Second World War, they were part of starting up the OSS as well, and so on. So they're called legends, not for nothing. These people have been for a long.
Yeah. Now, just to back a second to Bob Marley. So Bob Marley died of cancer?
He died of cancer, but he died almost 5 years later.
I see.
4 years later. Because what happened was that this cancer was going on, but I don't think he was aware of it. And then one day they were playing football and somebody stepped on his toe and it just exploded. And he had it examined and they saw, oh my God, it's cancer. We need to amputate the toe. But he was very much into dancing and extremely into football. And he just said, and health. He believed in healing himself without medicine and these type of things. So he absolutely turned that down. There were some of his musicians that even said that some doctors said that he needed to amputate the whole leg, but he just refused. So instead, he was recommended to contact a doctor, a German doctor. His name was Isles. I'm sorry, I can't really remember the name now. But he was a German doctor in Switzerland, as far as I remember, who were, according to Bob Marley's mother, was treating him extremely, violent and hard and merciless. He was, Bob Marley he was hardly allowed to eat, and he was giving all these treatments in a very quite brutal way. His mother was absolutely shocked when she was there. The doctor just came in and more or less stabbed him in the stomach and pumped whatever inside him, and Bob was lying there screaming in pain afterwards, and he didn't really, care at all, and just went out there. They cut off his dreadlocks and all of these things. And then when you look into this doctor's background, he was born in 1907, as far as I know, and he was in the Nazi party working under Heinrich Himmler. There's some reports saying that he was in Auschwitz working together with Mengele and these people. And these people, if you were talking about Adolf Hitler before in the States, these people they emigrated to the States, as far as other researchers has found out, and lived to very recently, as far as I know, if they're not still alive. I don't know how they keep alive, but with hormone injections and so on. Many of them have grown to become very old.
Oh, so Marley was really targeted by CIA for a
Yeah,
stealth assassination by cancer,
yeah.
and then
And
yeah,
then he died in early 1981. So it was just it wasn't even 6 months after Lennon. Very often you can see that these people, they die like in groups, like doom doom
yeah,
doom.
yeah,
They're closely linked together. You got Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy. It was only a month in between them, and sometimes I think that they do that to inflict to make the impact even harder on the general population. It's sort of like boom, doom, knock 10 and out, because like after Bobby Kennedy died, the air just went out of the whole population, and nobody had the strength to stand up anymore for a long, long time.
yeah, yeah.
I
Wow.
also think, if I can say about when it comes to the music business, that if you look at the amount of rock stars that have died in airplane crashes, car crashes, all of it, it's like there's so many of them. So either this is a group that has been very extremely unlucky, or a group that has been very involved with drugs and drunk driving, which I'm not counting that out. I'm just saying that this group is, like you said before as well, it is a group that is aiming at the young population. And if you look at who stands up for all the right moral things, it's young people. It's young people that fight wars, that stands up for peace, that demonstrates. They are the ones that have the ethos. Middle-aged people, they were worn out by then, by debts and too much work and family problems. It's the young ones that they have problems. This is one of the reasons they have knocked many of these people off as well, to get it up. And then they bring in their own artists, because the music business now has been totally taken over by this group as well.
Yeah, yeah. I was just about to say that now it seems that inside the music industry, with the monarch training, and
Yeah,
that there's been, and the satanic influence. You see all of these, that
yeah,
that sign,
yeah,
that
yeah.
there's all these ritual satanic sexual initiations that the rock stars or the musicians have to go through. I mean, I've been watching people on videos from the inside who come out and say, unless you go through these sexual
Y-
initiations,
You're not
uh,
making it.
you're not going to be given records, and it doesn't matter how talented you are. So they've
It's
taken over to try to take over the souls. So they now moved on to take over the souls of the musicians, or some of them.
I can only say that this is what the musicians say themselves. They use these words. They use the words that I had to sell my soul. That it was, and this thing with talent. It used to be about talent. Now it's about money and control,
Yeah,
I would say.
yeah,
And so the people or the elite, they've really targeted different areas specifically where they can control, and that is through movies, through music. These are the main, or very big, and media. These
yeah,
are one of the manipulating tools they're using.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
and also, when you look at sometimes when these rock stars are taken out or assassinations are made, you're talking about rituals and dates. They're very much into dates, numerology, these type of things. I'm not any good at those, but I do see a very clear pattern that keeps repeating. Also, that there are Freemasonry symbols on the place where they get assassinated. If it's not before, then after. Within a year, they're gonna erect an obelisk within a 100-yard area area from this where somebody was taking out, or the eternal flame. Or also sometimes, if you look now with Google Map, it's amazing, because if you look at these places where somebody has been taken out and look from above, very often you will see that there's this pyramid shape, and that the assassination has taken place right at the very edge of the top of the pyramid. You can see the roads going like this, and in that spot often there is an obelisk there before, if not. And my question is, why did they pick that place in the first place? Who helped, design the roads so that they would be exactly like that? And was there, because in some of these cases, when you look back in history, it was where they used to execute people, or they burned witches, or these type of places. We're talking about this sick mentality again. I don't understand it. I can just point it out. There was, for instance, have you heard about the Queen's Day incident in 2009 in Holland?
I'd like to hear that.
Okay, the one of the founders of the Bilderberg Group, which is way up in the pyramid, there are three major groups up to the level where I focused on. It's the Council on Foreign Relations, it's the Trilateral Commission, and it's the Bilderberg Group. And one of the key members in the Bilderberg Group was Queen Beatrice of Holland. And in 2009, they had what they call the Queen's Day. That was the day when she was elected. It's a very specific date that this happened on. And the Queen, it was a big parade and lots of people there. And the Queen with her family and guards and so on were in a double-decker bus where they had chopped off the roof, like one of these tourist buses. And it was driving towards this place, and there were lots of people around it. And suddenly, there's this car coming, like mad, just plowing its way through the people, the bystanders, killing 4 of them. And just, it seems like he's aiming for the bus, but instead he loses control and drives straight into a big monument. Okay, my question: what monument? It's a massive obelisk, okay? Yeah. And the thing is, when you look at it, you say, oh my God, what happened? But then when you start looking at it from a higher level, from a different approach, how on earth could this guy know exactly how to time when the bus came around that corner? Because you need to look from above to say, go, and speed up to be able to get exactly at that crossing point where it was supposed to happen. In my opinion, it was absolutely not supposed to do any harm to the Queen at all. They were using it for a totally different reason. But anyway, if you go back to Google Map again, and you look at exactly where this point where the killer or this guy, the driver, where he hit the obelisk, exactly where we're supposed to hit the Queen. When you look, it's exactly at the point of a pyramid shape where the streets go like this, exactly like this. And the obelisk is right there, the obelisk that he drove right into. Oh, I just want to say once again, we were talking about there were 4 people killed. They were never ever named, as far as I know. No one has ever seen the names of these people. When you look at this whole thing, because it was filmed, it's very strange, like there's some angles where people are flying, but there's no car. And then in another, it just very suspicious, I would say, to say the least. And then when you look on the map as well, if you go a little above the tip of the pyramid, from the streets to the right where the press conference was, what was that? The Bilderberg Hotel. Yeah. And she was one of her father was one of the founding members of the Bilderberg Group in 1954. in Hotel Bilderberg in Oosterbeek. That's why they call it the Bilderberg Group. It's just, and we're going to talk about Whitney Houston. And when you look at where she died at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. And Beverly Hilton Hotel, once again, if we go to Google Map, it's by the Wilshire Boulevard, yeah. And when you look at that hotel from the top, from above, there are all these sun symbols that are some of the symbols that is used by Freemasons as well. Big ones on the roof of this massive hotel. And there's sort of one building is like this, and then there's another one that is almost, it looks almost like an arrow. Okay, they love this symbol, the symbolism and the different whatever you call it, you know, lines and all of these things. And if you follow where this arrow from the building is pointing, it's pointing straight down like this, and about, I don't know, in maybe like 200-300 meters from there, there's the Century Plaza Towers. Okay, and often when you have these assassinations or terror acts, there's one control center where the whole thing is directed from. In Dealey Plaza, when JFK was taken out, it was, as far as I know, the Adolphus Hotel. When 9/11, I'm almost 100% sure that where it was all directed from was Building 7, that they then blew up late that afternoon. That was where the whole thing was controlled from. And where this is pointed towards is the Century Plaza Towers. Now, if you look at the Century Plaza Towers from above, the two buildings are triangular, and the courtyard in between the buildings are a perfect pyramid like this with the all-seeing eye. The lawns are made like that. And then on the other side, there's a street going like this. The way the street is called the All-Star Boulevard or something like that. And on the other side of that, there's a fountain exactly shaped like an eye, where the water, the sprinkling water, is the Irish of the. So it's, you know, this is just once again one of these things.
Yeah, a lot of the all-seeing eye pyramid. This seems like a perfect moment to transition to our next musician, which is the assassination of Whitney Houston.
Yeah. I mean, come on, what can you say? It's awful, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
But you know what? We said before that in this industry that has now been totally invaded, money, it is money. They do not give a shit about these people. They don't give it. And like Shaka Khan, who was a friend of Whitney Houston, she was personally told that you are worth more dead than alive.
Right.
You know, because this is the thing, when they've used the person, they get them up there, they suck them dry.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they get into their 40s or older, their voice goes a bit down and their popularity. How can they get even more? If they kill them, then, you know, and if they have done it strategically, if you look at the Whitney Houston, I'm going to go into some details. When they kill them, they make a bundle.
Right, a bundle.
From someone that was going out, you know.
Anyway, now just hold that thought. Okay.